Welcome, everyone. Hello. All right, so we're here with Ish Ruiz for the Bad Bunny Pray for for the Bad Bunny Pray for Us event. And just to repeat it in Spanish, bienvenidos a todos los que hablen español. Estamos aquí con Ismael Ruiz para el evento Bad Bunny Ruega por Nosotros. Y les voy a dar una biografía pequeña de Ismael en español primero, antes de empezar el evento. I'm going to give you all a brief bio of Ish, first in Spanish, then in English, and then we're going to start the event. So, el doctor Ismael Ruiz es becario postdoctoral de estudios católicos en la Escuela de Teología Candler de la Universidad de Emory y tiene un doctorado en Teología y Ética de la Escuela Graduate Theological Union. Originario de Puerto Rico y teólogo queer, sus intereses de investigación exploran la intersección entre la teología queer, la teología latina, la eclesiología, la ética sexual, la liberación y la Iglesia Católica. En la Escuela de Teología Candler, en donde todos ustedes se encuentran, ha impartido cursos de teología latina, ética sexual cristiana y enseñanza social católica. Y es a través de su enseñanza, investigación y servicio que el Dr. Ruiz espera ver un mundo donde el catolicismo abrace la diversidad de dones que las personas de todos los orígenes raciales e identidades sexuales aporten a la sociedad y a la Iglesia. So, Dr. Ish Ruiz is a postdoctoral fellow of Catholic Studies at Emory University's Candler School of Theology. He holds a PhD in theology and ethics from the Graduate Theological Union. And as a native from Puerto Rico and a queer theologian, his research interests explore the intersection between queer theology, Latinx theology, ecclesiology, sexual ethics, liberation, and the Catholic Church. At Candler School of Theology, where you are all located, he has taught courses in Latinx theology, Christian sexual ethics, and Catholic social teaching. It's through his teaching, research, and service that Dr. Ruiz hopes to see a world where Catholicism embraces the diversity of gifts people of all racial backgrounds and sexual identities bring to society and the church. So with that, I'd like us to clap for Dr. Ruiz. I'll let him speak.
Hello, everybody. Happy Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month, and thank you for having me here. I hope you can all hear me with this mic. I'm pretty good at projecting, but I hope you can hear me as well. Thank you for being here on this lecture. I was approached a few months ago. I do LGBTQ plus inclusion, as you heard, thinking, oh, well, we're going to give a talk about LGBTQ plus inclusion. And when they asked me to give a talk about Bad Bunny, I thought, I've really made it in life. This was one of my bucket list items. So checking that off early, I'm really happy. I'm going to start with some disclaimers. The first one is that because it's a talk on reggaeton, obviously there might be some sexually explicit language, some foul language that I'll be addressing, and quoting. It's a bilingual talk, so you will note that my English is going to be a little bit more detailed. What I'll be doing is I'll be summarizing in Spanish. That way, Spanish speakers who might speak both languages don't hear everything twice. Sometimes I'll translate line per line. Sometimes I'll switch at the end of a whole section just to not interrupt the flow. And then I'll read quotes in their original language, but I'll put translations on the screen, okay? Esta charla sobre el reggaetón va a tocar temas como el uso del lenguaje soez, el uso del lenguaje sexual y violento. Y yo voy a responderle esas críticas por lo que va a haber esa palabrería en mi charla, ¿verdad? La charla será bilingüe, pero en español lo que voy a hacer es resumir. I come to this conversation as a gay Puerto Rican Catholic theologian, and my goal is twofold. Tengo dos metas con esta charla. First, I hope to discuss the history of reggaeton as a location for theological insight, okay? Specifically from a Latinx theological perspective. Second, I will dwell on the work of Bad Bunny because I believe it contains a crucial vision for our self-understanding as Latinx people. And I think it has important insights for the future construction and performance of our Latinx identity and culture. Please note that I will not be justifying everything about reggaeton. I hope, however, to expand our perception. Tengo dos metas con esta charla. Primero, utilizar el reggaetón como localización, como una fuente de reflexión teológica latina. Y segundo, explorar la música de Bad Bunny como si tuviese una visión esperanzada para el futuro de la identidad Latinx. Y obviamente no estoy aquí para justificar todo sobre el reggaetón. There will be nuance. Esto es complicado, ¿verdad? Esto no es blanco y negro. This work is primarily a work of theology and Latinx identity, but it has implications in the fields of ethics and pastoral care. I know there are some ethicists here and pastoral theologians, so I will be focusing on ethics, but please bring your questions during our Q&A at the end. Esto es un trabajo de teología, pero sus preguntas sobre el campo de ética y de la pastoral son bienvenidas al final de la presentación. With that, I'll begin. Comenzamos. I'll begin my remarks with a story. In 2002, I enrolled in an all-boys Catholic school in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I was introduced to reggaeton for the first time. I was 12 years old. My first CD was A la Reconquista by Héctor y Tito. That's what a CD looks like, by the way. I'm just kidding. That's when I became in love with it. Reggaeton was all the rage at the time, especially among youth who often begged the DJ at any dance party to play some reggaeton. Mi introducción al reggaeton ocurrió a los 12 años. Este fue mi primer CD, a la Reconquista, y todos mis compañeros escuchaban reggaeton y le pedían al DJ que pusiera la música en cada party. Los boricos hablamos con anglicismos, así es que mi español tiene palabras en inglés, como decimos, por un tubo y siete llaves. I suspect that in addition to the catchy beats and the novelty of excessive foul language at that age, reggaeton was also popular because of the style of dancing that accompanies it, called perreo. Perreo is derived from the word perro, which means dog, so perreo refers to doggy-style dancing to reggaeton music. Typically, a girl is pressing her behind to the boy's crotch and begins to grind on him. Si hablas español, no te tengo que explicar lo que es el perreo. I told them that if you speak Spanish, I don't have to explain perreo to you. For obvious reason, my parents were mortified by both reggaeton music, which contains sexually explicit foul language, and the perreo dance that their teenage boys were exposed to. And they constantly voiced that opposition. Obviously, they were trying to navigate raising 3 teenage boys and giving us some freedom to listen to the music here and there, but also reining us in when it was necessary. It was a negotiation. Por razones obvias, mis padres no les encantaba el reggaeton. Tenían un problemita. Okay? Nonetheless, tensions reached a boiling point many times. I recall one incident in which my mom went to drop off my middle brother at a party, walks into the room, sees paper, butcher paper along the walls, asks what that is for, and is informed that it is so that when the girls are grinding on the boys, as they lean against the wall wouldn't get scoffed. My mom was upset about that. And very shocked. I couldn't listen to reggaeton for 2 more weeks after that. Recuerdo un instante en el cual mi madre fue a una fiesta y vio que había papeles strass en las paredes y preguntando por qué era para que no se mancharan las paredes cuando los niños estuviesen perreando en contra de ella. Mi madre estaba en shock. There it is again. Now that was just one anecdote, but my parents and reggaeton just did not get along. What happened between 2002 in 2019? Well, obviously, in addition to them not having teenage boys anymore, reggaeton did go through several changes. I would even use the word maturation and transformation. In its early days, it was considered more obscure, and in the present day, it is one of the most popular genres throughout the globe, and we're going to talk about that. Okay? Ethnomusicologist Wayne Marshall, a scholar who has published on the history of reggaeton, characterizes the emergence of the genre as a nonlinear simultaneous interplay when reggae dance halls from Jamaica acquired Spanish lyrics in Panama. Any Panamanians? I was wondering. And with that, it combined with tropical sounds from the Caribbean, hip-hop in the US, etc. The genre was initially referred to as Spanish reggae. Spanish reggae came from Jamaica, coalesced in Panama, was distributed from New York, and finally arrived in Puerto Rico. That picture is to scale in our hearts and our minds. That island is that big. It is not. El etnomusicólogo Wayne Marshall describe la historia del reggaetón como una historia migrante de Jamaica a Panamá, a Nueva York y a Puerto Rico. After Spanish reggae spread throughout the U.S. and Latin America, it found fertile ground in La Isla del Encanto, which is what we call our island. In Puerto Rico, the genre crystallized when hip-hop infused beats known as dembow met Puerto Rican plena and bomba, as well as other popular genres like bachata, salsa, merengue, etc. In the early 1900s, the transformed genre also adopted a new name, and it was called el underground. A clear allusion to the contrast between above-ground music, aka mainstream music, and below-ground music, el underground. El underground was the genre of the disenfranchised. It was the genre of poor communities that experienced violence, drug trafficking, and exceeding level of poverty compared to mainstream communities. As such, the lyrics of El Underground reflected a way of life that, for many privileged Puerto Ricans, was considered obscene, inappropriate, and undesirable. Nevertheless, the genre continued to grow in popularity through clubs and informal distribution until it was picked up by record labels and commercially distributed through music stores. El reggaetón en Puerto Rico encuentra tierra fértil y se convierte en lo que se conoce como el underground cuando se mezcla con la salsa, el merengue, la bachata y otros ritmos. Y eventualmente crece en popularidad, lo vendían clandestinamente hasta que las disqueras compraron los derechos para producir la música y ahí tenemos varios ejemplos de discos de reggaetón. With the growing popularity came controversy. In 1995, the government of Puerto Rico began to crack down on el underground as part of Mano Dura contra el Crimen because of its obscene lyrics. And they did so by raiding music stores, finding producers, and banning it from public radio and TV. However, it also forced music producers to gradually modify the genre towards lyrics that were more acceptable. Cuando el reggaetón fue oprimido por el gobierno, dando multas y censurándolo, los productores de la música tuvieron que modificarlo. Furthermore, one producer named DJ Nelson successfully rebranded the genre from el underground to reggaeton, which is derived from the words reggae and marathon. Reggae marathon. Reggaeton, there you go. That's a reference to my big fat Greek wedding. I don't know who got that. Así sugiero, see, not every word is Greek, every word is Puerto Rican. Así surgió el nombre del reggaeton, combinando el reggae y el maratón. As reggaeton continued to evolve in light of its social context in the late 1990s, its commercialization resumed, and it gave birth to a plethora of iconic artists and songs that rapidly spread throughout the island and beyond. The first monumental success in the genre took place in 2005. Can anyone guess what song that was and the artist? La Gasolina, that is correct. Daddy Yankee's La Gasolina broke international records, alerted the world to this genre, and of course, taking cues from his success, other artists started producing lyrics and music that was more socially acceptable. This often focused on celebrating Latinx identity rather than focusing on so-called obscene lyrics that would not have garnered international success. Notando el éxito de La Gasolina, como decimos los boricuas, los reggaetoneros se pusieron para su número y empezaron a producir música un poco más apropiada. In 2017, another song broke international records, and the artist produced what was at the time considered the most watched YouTube video of all time. What song is that, 2017? Despacito. Okay, absolutely. And of course, that was in 2017. As we know, in 2019, the next biggest hit was when my father graced us with his rendition of Dura. I'm sure he will garner international success sometime soon. Interestingly, the genre became more mainstream in the 2010s, and it also produced a counter version of the style that tried to retrieve the style from the underground. Okay, it did a pendulum swing. The reggaeton variation known as trap, which was adopted also from rap, was commonly, and it's usually a word associated with the drug trade, began to emerge on the island and reclaim some of that inflammatory language. From that strand, the namesake of this presentation, Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio, now known as Bad Bunny, emerged and rose to fame. Okay. Can you take this off? Oh, or turn this off. I don't know how to turn it off. Yeah, but can you turn it off? Okay, just leave it there. Yeah, thank you. All right. My apologies for that. So Bad Bunny emerged from the trap variation of reggaeton. All right, let me see how I can grow a third hand. Now, given the constant shifts from el underground to the mainstream and back, the genre remains controversial. Many of the lyrics still glorify drug use, gun violence, sexism, and domestic violence through foul language and even sound effects. Right? You can often hear gunshots or people having sex noises in the background of reggaeton music. Right? The male-dominated genre promotes what is commonly known as machismo, whereby men only exhibit emotions of anger. Whereby men only exhibit emotions of anger in a quest for power and domination by any means necessary, and especially against women. Gracias. How do I do this?
Is that gonna work?
It should. It's just this is tilting. There we go. Yep. All right. I was talking about the violence. Estaba hablando de la violencia del reggaetón. El reggaetón, cuando surge al éxito internacional, una segunda forma de reggaetón surge, que es el trap. Y el trap trata de reconectar con el reggaetón original, conocido como el underground, resucitando la temática que se daba en ese entonces. De ahí sale Bad Bunny. Y obviamente el reggaetón y el trap tienen temáticas problemáticas machistas que promueven la violencia hacia las mujeres, la violencia en general, etc. As a theological ethicist, I challenge and even condemn these components of reggaeton as I acknowledge the adverse effect they have on sexually oppressed individuals and on children who can easily consume the lyrics through modern-day technology. Como teólogo, como especialista en ética, hay problemas con el reggaetón. However, I will also make two important observations, dos observaciones. The first is that the chauvinistic sexualized themes we see in reggaeton are not exclusive to the genre. They are actually present across genres in Latinx music, perhaps with some exceptions, right? And across cultures in Latin America. So we must be careful not to scapegoat reggaeton for the deeper social issues of our culture. El reggaetón no nos podemos desquitar con él por los problemas que tiene nuestra cultura. El reggaetón refleja la cultura, no necesariamente la origina. In fact, we're going to play a game, and that's what your cards are for. I'm going to play some. I'm going to display some lyrics on the screen, and you have to guess what genre they come from. So the first round is going to be practice. You hold up the card. First round is practice. Un jueguito. And you just hold it up. I'm not going to read it because I'm going to start saying it with the real beat. Okay, obviamente, so you hold it up. Cuando escuches la lírica arriba es en español, la de abajo es en inglés. There's going to be a translation underneath each one. Okay, good. That is reggaeton. This is another one. Okay, oh yeah. Okay, Joanna, I knew you were going to do that. No, you cannot sing it. Okay, that should be salsa. That's a salsa. Okay, that's Mark Anthony. Okay, good stuff. Are you ready? Okay. Hold it up. Hold it up. Hold it up. Don't tell us what it is. Just hold it. And you can look around the room, but no cheating. Make your own choices. All right. I see bachata. I see. Okay, that is a bolero. That is Luis Miguel. Entrégate. I can't sing, so I can't. I don't want to be on a YouTube video like I just did my dad, because karma. Here's another one. De un café pasamos al sofá, etc. Mucha bachata. ¿Sabes? Esto es una salsa. This is Yo no sé mañana. Okay. All right, eres mía, mía, mía. Okay, that was tricky. No, I know there's a song from reggaeton that is like that, but this particular one is now that I think about it, this particular one is a bachata. Yep. That was tricky. I'm sorry. That was my bad. My bad. Okay. Esto es una pregunta truco. Porque this is a trick question because esto es un reggaetón, felices los cuatro. But Maluma recorded the song and then Marc Anthony did a salsa version with him. Por eso es que quizás usted lo ha escuchado como una salsa, porque hicieron un remix como salsa. All right, we have one more slide. Hold it up. Yeah, this is a reggaeton. You know, they get poetic sometimes. What can I say? Okay. All right, this is one of my favorite salsa songs. If you've never heard it, I recommend it. It's Ese Hombre Baila India. Yep, she drags him through the mud, as you can read. Okay, hold it up. Okay, this is a bolero. This is Ricardo Arjona, La Historia de un Taxi. Good. And last one. Hey, okay, this one's easy. This is the salsa that became famous, and look at that. It's about, just read it. Okay. All right, as we can tell, sexual themes are present across genres in the music. Perhaps we can argue that reggaeton is more often in your face about it. Sure, I'll give you that. But that just means that reggaeton is simply making explicit what other genres nevertheless imply. Plus, as we saw, not all reggaeton contains obscene language, as many songs celebrate Latinx pride. Los temas de la temática de la sexualidad no es solo y el lenguaje obsceno no es exclusivo del reggaetón, está en otro género. Okay? The same goes with dance. Yeah, perreo means grinding on one another. We got that. But once again, it is merely making explicit what other forms of dance that are not perreo nevertheless imply. Okay? And Jesus sees that. El perreo no es el único baile sexualizado, ¿verdad? Hay diferentes formas de baile que todos como que sugieren, ¿verdad? Voy a hacer esta historia en español, Spanish story. Me acuerdo de mis padres. Me decían, cuando yo era joven, las nenas y yo bailábamos un bolero en una loseta. You know, they dance bolero stuck together on a single tile. Okay, boomer. Right. It's important to note that from an early age of reggaeton until now, there have been feminist themes that call for justice as well. So it's not all that. From its early days, we have artists like Ivy Queen and Tego Calderón, who sang about women empowerment and racism. We have artists like Residente Calle 13, who talks about classism. We have artists like, we even have LGBTQ plus artists like trans artist Villana Antillano and lesbian artist Young Miko, who are new. There's even, and yes, la justicia ha formado parte de la temática del reggaetón desde el inicio, con artistas feministas, antirracistas, anticlasistas y miembros de la comunidad LGBTQ, como Ivy Queen, Tego Calderón, Residente, Villano Antillano y Young Miko. Reggaeton fans themselves have also taken up the call for justice. As some of you may recall, in 2019, Puerto Ricans were trying to get the governor out of office, and there were many protests, kayakings through the bay, yoga in the middle of the town square, a march on the main thoroughfare, people hitting their pots and their pans in front of the governor's mansion. There was a kayak blockade of the San Juan Bay. But the most famous form of protest is called Perreo combativo, combative doggy style dancing. Unfortunately, I had a fun video, but it doesn't load. But it's basically people grinding and playing blasting music in front of the governor's mansion. I'm trying to get him to quit. I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, to be honest. That's when he said everything's gone. Estoy tocando el tema de cuando habían las protestas contra el gobernador de Puerto Rico en el 2019 y había muchas formas de protesta. Una de las más famosas fue un perreo combativo. O sea que el reggaetón se ha invocado se ha utilizado para activismo social. ¿Okay? All of that said, I reiterate, there are many problematic aspects of reggaeton that need to be interrogated and challenged as they come up. And they have been throughout the history of reggaeton. Hay muchos problemas con el reggaeton, eso yo lo reitero. Okay? Now, with that brief history of reggaeton and small analysis, let's dive into theology. Here I argue that reggaeton operates as a source of theological reflection about Latinx identity. Sostengo que el reggaeton es una fuente de reflexión teológica. En especial me enfoco en 3 puntos de atención que la teología latina católica discute. I specifically observe that the history of reggaeton reflects 3 significant points of tension that are often addressed in Catholic Latinx theology. The first tension is between those who are privileged enough to live a mainstream life and the ones who are poor and forced to live underground. El primer punto es de los que son privilegiados para vivir en el mainstream y los que tienen que vivir en el underground por la pobreza. Much like Jesus, who was an undesirable in his time, underground reggaetoneros have dared to take up space above ground and disrupt some of the oppressed norms that separate and oppress those deemed unacceptable, quote unquote. Al igual que Cristo, los reggaetoneros chocan la cultura principal, trayendo algo que se considera inadecuado. Society did not like that, right? As evidenced in the failed censoring of reggaeton in the 90s. Commenting on this repression, Raquel Rivera observes, and I quote, "Censoring a music genre is, of course, a much more manageable task than reducing unemployment, improving the quality of public education, providing health care, or lowering the murder rate. It was also a concrete action that could be taken against an intangible moral infraction." End quote. In other words, reggaeton was unfairly scapegoated by the dominant culture who refused to look at poverty in the face. Furthermore, this scapegoating played upon social customs that consider sexuality, talking about money, and even political activism to be taboo. And this is reinforced through a social system of shame and fear of el que dirán, what will people say. Los poderosos en la sociedad se desquitaron contra el reggaetón y se rehusaron a mirarlo en la cara e impusieron un tabú hacia la sexualidad, las dificultades económicas y el activismo político. However, in the words of liberation theologian Gustavo Gutiérrez, there are not 2 histories, one profane, one sacred. Rather, there is only one human destiny. Nuestro destino como humanidad une la libertad cultural y política, la libertad del pecado social y la salvación. Como dice la oración del Padre Nuestro, la salvación se vive en la tierra como en el cielo según la voluntad de Dios. The destiny of human liberation synthesizes freedom from oppression with a freedom from social sin and freedom to love God. God's will for salvation, therefore, is to be experienced on earth as it is in heaven, and our collective liberation depends on this common history. Because reggaeton is born out of la vida cotidiana, or the daily lived experience of the disenfranchised, it's no surprise that the lyrics often reflect their very real struggles. But through the obscene lyrics, artists demonstrate a connection to this reality, perhaps in ways that transcend rationality, and through art, reflect an attempt to transform this reality into freedom. El artista reggaetonero refleja la realidad incómoda de la vida cotidiana de los pobres, pero también representa un intento por su parte de transformar su realidad a través del arte. Reggaetoneros, whether consciously or unwittingly, are calling us to participate in the act of collective liberation. El reggaetón funciona como medio de liberación social colectiva. The second tension is racial. Reggaeton finds its roots in the African ancestry of Jamaica and the US via hip-hop music, and is in contrast with white musical traditions such as Puerto Rican danza, which was like a waltz, pop music, which also exists in Spanish, and rock and roll, all of which were also on the island. Time does not allow me to explore this in depth, but I will provisionally note that when one hears the word reggaetonero or caco, which is a term used to describe those who enjoy reggaeton, one tends to picture a darker-skinned person sporting style known as blineo, which refers to the adoption of hip-hop style of bling. Okay? Hay un contraste racial entre el reggaetón y otros géneros musicales tropicales, por lo regular que se asocian con el ser blanco. Por lo regular asociamos el reggaetonero con la piel oscura y el blineo. Reggaeton pays tribute to its African ancestry. Nuestra herencia africana es un punto clave en el reggaeton. Perhaps the most prominent expression of such tribute came from Tego Calderón, a black Puerto Rican artist who incorporated Afro-Caribbean rhythms into his music and explicitly challenged racism and colorism on the island. For example, in his song Loíza, he expresses, it's named after a town in Puerto Rico where enslaved persons kidnapped from Africa were residing. Okay? And in this song titled Loíza, after that town, he expresses his anger at the oppression faced through education and through legal systems that criminalize the poor. Okay? La música de Tego Calderón, por ejemplo, la canción titulada Loíza responde a esas injusticias raciales presentes en nuestra cultura. And this is the refrain. This is one of the verses. Okay?
What's the name of the song?
Loíza, Loiza. Returning to the broader question of racial oppression, I also note that the history of reggaeton represents an inherent mestizaje and mulatez that honors our African roots captured in the Jamaican reggae dance halls and in the hip-hop rhythm aesthetics. Reggaeton also plays tribute, indeed often remixes, with Caribbean Latin American genres such as salsa, merengue, bachata, cumbia, and others. La historia del reggaeton es una historia de mestizaje y mulatez, tanto en su migración como en su colaboración con otros géneros. ¿A quién no le gusta el salsatón? Crucially, as reggaeton approached the global stage, the mixture of all these genres, nationalities, and cultures and races is proudly synthesized under the banner of Latinidad. Latinx pride became a central theme in this genre, which, while paying tribute to our ancestors, provides a vision for a hopeful future of collaboration and unity amidst difference. In other words, reggaeton points to a future that is indeed mestizo and mulatto. And I will share this quote from Virgilio Elizondo. Latin mestizaje is the greatest gift we offer the human family. The new mestizaje joyfully reclaims the heritage of all of our parents, grandparents, and ancestors. A reclaiming and restructuring that is a life of freedom and creativity. This is the mestizaje we long to introduce and offer for its fascinating benefits for humanity. Okay? Remember these two words, reclaiming and restructuring. The third point of tension is the question of colonization. Okay? As reggaeton gained popularity, it faced an ideological colonization that sought to erase what it deems obscene. La colonización atenta a borrar lo que es obsceno. The well-chronicled erasure of Puerto Rican identity at the hands of the U.S. colonizers is reflected in the history of reggaeton, which had to constantly adapt to appeal to a white capitalist market by erasing its connection to the underground. Such colonization takes place through the promulgation of social norms, through socialization and education. This represents an exercise in normalizing power, whereby social structures discursively convince people that some things are acceptable and some things are not. However, reggaetoneros through art also have the power, the discursive power, and the ability to set new norms. I'm using Foucault, which they have been exercising effectively considering the growing popularity of the genre despite protests from the morality police. El reggaetón también ha desafiado una colonización ideológica al rebelarse contra las normas opresivas de lo que se considera apropiado. Here we reach the man of the hour, Bad Bunny Baby, whose reggaeton music wields incredible discursive power that challenges oppressive norms. His art, including music videos and public appearances, synthesizes trap reggaeton, which represents a retrieval of the underground roots of the genre, with a queer Latinx pride in a quest for liberation. El arte de Bad Bunny, incluyendo la música, video y apariencias públicas, desafía normas opresoras al infundir la realidad latina con una identidad queer. Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio was a Catholic church choir boy, growing up in a barrio called Almirante Sur in Vega Baja. This is in Puerto Rico. After failing and dropping out of college, he got a job as a bagger at a local grocery store. His friends convinced him to upload some of his music up to SoundCloud. That was his hobby, where he received many hits and was picked up by a record company in 2017. He adopted the name Bad Bunny in memory of a time when his parents forced him to wear a costume that he didn't want to wear, a bunny costume. Bad Bunny has produced 4 albums, gone on several tours, and won many awards. Notably, Spotify has named him the most listened to artist in the world for the past 3 years consecutively. Benito era un joven de Vega Baja, Puerto Rico, que trabajaba como un bagger en un supermercado. Fue contratado por una compañía en el 2017 y en menos de 5 años, tras varias giras, premios y discos, fue reconocido como el artista más escuchado en Spotify. En el 2020, 2021 y 2022. His art reflects a sense of pride in a contemporary understanding of Latinidad that is intersectional across cultural and sexual identity. Furthermore, he performatively showcases, I'm using Judith Butler here, a form of Someone knocking? Sorry, Bad Bunny. Good?
Yeah.
Thank you. That would have been cool. I'm not that cool, I'm sorry. He would zoom in. ¿Dónde me quedé? Okay, his art reflects a sense of pride in a contemporary understanding of Latinidad that is intersectional across cultural and sexual identity. Furthermore, he performatively showcases a form of masculinity that is sensitive and that struggles because it is constantly placed in a heteronormative box. His music genre acknowledges these struggles and challenges them. I suspect this is the reason for his popularity, especially among Latinx youth who identify with similar contemporary struggles. El arte de Bad Bunny intersecta la identidad latina con la sexualidad. Inclusive, en ocasiones, refleja un sentido de masculinidad sensible que rompe estereotipos machistas. Y eso lo hace atractivo a la juventud. Characteristic of reggaeton and trap, Benito's music contains foul language, yes it does, and sexually overt lyrics that to some might appear to be machista or reduce people's humanity to their sexuality. However, I argue that when one considers his sexualized lyrics in conjunction with his music videos and his public performances, Bad Bunny presents a sexual expression not as a reduction or objectification of the person to their sexual act, but as an unavoidable, explicit reality. And he criticizes some sexual norms as a potentially oppressive social construct. In other words, I don't think Bad Bunny is afraid to say, hey, we all have sex, masturbate, have sexual identities, express our gender, express our sexuality, and also sometimes transgress against it. We all do it. And some of the and he also says that some of the norms society has created about our sexual experience are oppressive, that they're bogus, that they're not well-founded. Okay? Furthermore, taking a page from queer activism, he utilizes music videos and public appearances to performatively satirize those oppressive norms. Hey, Judith Butler talks about performativity. Performativity is a cycle whereby a person performs according to the social norms expected upon them, depending on their genitalia. And by doing that performance, they strengthen the concept of gender. I'm going to get concrete. My parents identified me as a boy, taught me how a boy acts, and by acting as a boy, I strengthened the concept of boyness, which then gets retaught to me. And as I perform it again, I strengthen it. The word reify, to make something more concrete. I reify gender as a concept, which then gets retaught to me through maybe bullying. Don't be so gay. Oh, I guess I better straighten up. Strengthening masculinity gets taught to me again. Yep. That's called performativity, that cycle. And Judith Butler came up with that idea. Well, used it, applied it to gender, I should say. Benito era un joven de Vega... Espérate, no estoy ahí. Aquí.
Aunque algunos jóvenes, algunas personas consideran la letra de Bad Bunny machista y vulgar, yo opino que Bad Bunny no tiene miedo de ser explícito sobre el sexo y utiliza su arte y la vulgaridad para burlarse de las normas heteronórmicas que la sociedad nos impone. Y la performatividad, ¿verdad? Yo no sé si esa es la palabra, la traducción de performativity, pero la idea es que nosotros actuamos el género que nos asignan. Y cuando hacemos eso, solidificamos el concepto de género. Y se nos vuelve a enseñar. We're going to look at some examples of how he does this later on. Bad Bunny's music contains a hopeful vision for justice for the future. That is my argument. Particularly because it is a vision that appeals to Latinx people who no longer want to separate sexuality from Latinx identity. However, far more than merely representing LGBTQ plus people, sorry, I should have said that this is particularly appealing to Latinx people who identify as members of the LGBTQ plus community, such as myself. But it also has wide appeal. However, far more than merely representing LGBTQ plus people, which is art definitely does, as evidenced by these images, and I don't have enough time to talk about every single one of them. Actually, I do. The three GIFs are from what video? Music video? Yeah, Yo Perreo Sola, a song that was intended, if you just listen to the music, it's a song about don't encroach upon her without her consent. Don't dance upon her without her consent. But when you look at the music video, he performs in drag. Okay? No longer just a feminist liberatory project, but a queer one, whereby he is disrupting. You know, he's not positioning himself in the heteronormative box. Okay? Plus, considering the history of reggaeton, and I had to eliminate this from my presentation, the violence against LGBTQ plus people that reggaeton does, this was groundbreaking. Okay? The video where a man is kissing him on his cheek, that's from Caro. Same as this one where he's doing his nails. After that scene, it cuts, and there is a person who appears to have been assigned female at birth taking his place, and she's the one lip-syncing the whole song. Okay? And then it goes into her head, and then we see that scene where a bunch of people are kissing him on the cheek, among them that bearded person. The video on top was from a live performance where he kissed one of the dancers. And the video below, that's the video from Yonaguni, where they're playing a game where they pass a card to each other, mouth to mouth, like a playing card, okay? By inhaling it and passing it around. And then so he receives it from that person. Okay? When Bad Bunny does this, he is refusing to adopt sexual labels. Despite the numerous inquiries and accusations about queerbaiting, which we can talk about, he is modeling a gender identity and expression that does not entertain the process of labeling and putting people in a box. He promotes a new way of being human and a new way of relating to social and gender norms. In other words, he is engaging in a queer project that embraces radical transgression. Más allá que simplemente buscar representar a las personas LGBTQ+, Bad Bunny utiliza su arte como una forma de discurso creativo que desmantela las normas que favorecen la heterosexualidad y el género binario sobre la identidad queer. The formal field of queer theology was inaugurated by Argentinian theologian Marcela Althaus Reed, who in her classical work Indecent Theology argues that all theology, this is a quote, all theology is sexual theology. Toda la teología es teología sexual. She shockingly proposes that theologians must craft theology without wearing any underwear, so that their theology captures the scent of their genitals. That's the opening of her book. Yeah, it's a metaphor, obviously, or maybe not. In other words, I am wearing underwear, by the way. Should have clarified that. In other words, when we do theology, aka when we talk about God, we must be aware of the sexual norms that we bring into theological thinking, and we need to transgress against them. We need to be queer because God is queer, or as Patrick Shank explains, God's nature is one of radical transgressive love. In light of this image, we need to use our embodied selves to liberate ourselves from religious, theological, political, and economic oppressive norms, and then we can talk about God. Aldous Reed famously summarizes, quote, "We lift God's skirt after lifting ours first." Marcela Althaus Reed famosamente dijo que hay que calzarle la falsa a Dios después de alzarnos nuestra propia falda. Les choca. ¿Por qué? ¿Qué normas están operando en su mente que causan ese shock? Bienvenidos a la teología queer, donde el desafío en contra de las normas sexuales, especialmente las normas religiosas, causan reflexión. The shock factor causes the reflection, methodologically, performatively. Okay? Much like a queer theologian, Bad Bunny infuses into his music both his Latinidad as a reggaetonero and his queerness as an embodied person who refuses to fit into any sexual box, whether gay, straight, cisgender, or fluid. More importantly, based on his popularity and his reception among Latinx youth, I argue that his queer Latinx reggaeton brand represents our collective hope as a Latinx family, whereby our cultural identity no longer isolates our Latinidad from our embodiment. Los jóvenes Latinx se sienten atraídos a un modelo que integra la identidad latina con la identidad queer. Por eso es un acto de liberación personal. Porque eso es un acto de liberación personal. To get more concrete about how Bad Bunny does this, let's briefly examine 3 songs in their music video from his latest album, Un Verano Sin Ti. He's dropping a new album soon, by the way. I was hoping that it wouldn't happen before this presentation, so I didn't have to change my slides. In my favorite song of the album, called Ojitos Lindos, Bad Bunny goes on a lot of different dates with different girls and then drops them off at home, clearly unhappy with his dating life. The song refrain goes, it's up there, the translation, "Y solo mírame con esos ojitos lindos, que con eso yo estoy bien, hoy he vuelto a nacer." In a fit of frustration over his last date, he speeds home and swerves to avoid a horse and crashes his car. Lots of symbolism there. And he wakes up in a hospital bed, sad and alone. And that is where the perfect partner walks in. A very cute puppy. The refrain of the song plays again as the video zooms into his eyes. "Look at me with those beautiful eyes, and with that I will be okay. I will be born again." Clearly, this satirizes the romanticized idea of love at first sight, or love that makes us feel whole. Or perhaps it's an expansion of that idea of love by including other ways in which we can fall in love and feel whole. Who knows? But at the very least, we're thinking about it. Welcome to Queer Theology. I also wonder who in here feels a deep love for your pet. Can you raise your hand? Yeah. Okay. You feel that despite you feel that despite our anthropocentric society telling us that such a love is lesser. En el video de mi canción favorita del último álbum, Bad Bunny busca enamorarse de unos ojitos lindos. Sin embargo, tras varias relaciones fallidas y un accidente de carro, encuentra ese amor en su perrito. Y eso satiriza la idea de que el amor y las relaciones deben ser confinadas al modelo heteronórmico. I have a dog for the first time. I moved in with my partner, and he has a dog. And I had never had a dog before. I had birds before, but not a dog. You know, every Puerto Rican family has had a bird. And it's a new form of love that I never expected. Okay? It's a new form of love that I never expected. Following a similar theme, in another popular song called Titi Me Preguntó, it further mocks the oppressive heteronormative model often seen in Latinx families that pressures young people into heterosexual relationships and marriages. The video opens with an aunt, the lady over here, asking her 2 young nephews how many girlfriends they have. One of the children, presumably Bad Bunny, is quiet and scared. While the other one, that kid. While the other one brags, "I had a lot of girlfriends. Tengo muchas novias." This is the song's refrain. Right? Titi me preguntó si tengo muchas novias. Hoy tengo a una, mañana a otra, pero no hay boda. Se repite. And then, me las voy a llevar a todas a un VIP, a un VIP. Hey, Titi, vamos a tirar un selfie. Say cheese. And then we're not going to do the other part. I cut it strategically because he's bragging about how many women he has penetrated after that. In a fit of frustration, wait, this is not the right thing. Okay, here we go. The video then time jumps, and he's singing while he's getting a haircut and walking around New York City while women shake it all around him, right? However, the song takes a turn here. Toward the end, he gets kidnapped, and while he's sitting in the kidnapper's van, the bridge of the song comes on, in which he expresses that while he desires to fall in love, he has trust issues, and he feels unable to love someone and fears breaking their heart. Okay? At this point, he's also forced into a tux. At this point, he is taken out of the van and walked down an aisle. Okay? And I'm sure scripture scholars are going to have a field day with this next one. The perfect bride then floats from heaven. Okay? I don't think I need to explain much about this queer Latinx intervention here, but how many of the Latinx people in the room have ever felt, well, and also not Latinx people, have felt that pressure? Ay, pero nene, búscate una novia. My whole family knows I'm gay, but I have one grandma that has Alzheimer's, and every once in a while when I am FaceTiming the entire family, she will just randomly ask, pero tú tienes novia? And the whole family starts laughing because it's like grandma forgot. Also, one of my siblings, like I would just be sitting next to my grandma, and he'd be like, "Hey, you should ask him if he has a girlfriend," just to mess with her. And she's like, "You do?" And I'm like, "Oh gosh, Bad Bunny, save me." Estoy aquí hablando de imágenes en las cuales a Bad Bunny lo secuestran y lo fuerzan a caminar bajo el pasillo de una boda, mientras que la novia imaginaria viene del cielo. Lo que es obviamente una crítica social ante la presión que sentimos las personas latinas por casarnos y entrar en una relación heteronórmica. Perhaps the most popular song from the album, at least in Puerto Rico, is titled El Apagón, which translates to the blackout. A clear reference to the constant blackouts on the island due to the hurricanes and the political corruption that failed to upkeep the island's electrical grid. The song opens with a beautiful tribute to Puerto Rican cultural heritage, overlaid to some bomba beats. Bomba was an Afro-Caribbean dance, again, hearkening back to our African roots. The end of the song has a poetic melody that says, "Yo no me quiero ir de aquí, que se vayan ellos. I don't want to leave. Make them leave." An obvious critique of the U.S. millionaires that have been buying property in the beautiful island and displacing the natives. Interestingly, the music video also adds a 16-minute mini documentary at the end explaining the law that provides tax havens for millionaires to gentrify the island. So he releases the music video for one of the most famous songs. It's 22 minutes long because it includes a documentary. However, the most interesting part of the song, in my opinion, is the middle. Where electronic beats are mixed with the reggaeton rhythm and a vulgar refrain plays over and over again. The refrain is up there. Okay, the word chocha means vagina, but it's more like the P word. Okay, so it's more like maybe more of a derogatory connotation. At first, and this is repeated over and over to like a techno beat. Okay? Me gusta la de Puerto Rico. Me gusta la, and it's over and over for several seconds. Okay. At first glance, my parents don't let me play this song at home. At first glance, the refrain feels out of place in the context of the song, and it might feel reductive to some, as if Puerto Rican culture and oppression, which he was just singing about, can suddenly be reduced to the objectification of a woman's vagina. However, when one looks at the music video, during that segment of the song, the image shows a large crowd partying in a tunnel with Puerto Rican flags, gay flags, and queer people voguing. I interpret this as Bad Bunny's queer intervention. Here he is bringing a queer self and highlighting queer Puerto Ricans in the art of decolonization, perhaps alluding to a decolonization of sexual oppression in conjunction to the economic one. Also, fun fact, the refrain about liking Puerto Rico vagina is actually a sample from an old song from an Argentinian rapper from El Underground. Thus, Bad Bunny is paying a tribute to the roots of the genre. He is a trap artist, but reappropriates the words and makes them queer. In other words, he is reclaiming and restructuring. La canción del apagón ofrece un tributo a la puertorriqueñidad a través de la lírica y música y un pequeño documental al final del video musical. Sin embargo, el estribillo, me gusta la pip de Puerto Rico, representa una intervención queer que incorpora la liberación sexual en unión a la liberación económica y política. Overall, in Bad Bunny's work, we can see a new reflection of Latinx identity, or I should say we can see an expression of Latinx identity that has been hiding in plain sight all along. Bad Bunny celebrates Latinx mestizaje, yes, but more than that, he celebrates Latinx mezquiertaje, which Roberto Che Espinosa coined and defines as an ethical, ontological, a way of knowing, or a way looking at the nature of things, epistemological, a way of knowing, viewpoint that transforms our otherness into hope. I'm going to repeat that. Mezquiertaje is an ethical, ontological, epistemological viewpoint that transforms our otherness into hope. Latinx queer people, by the way, he's citing a theorist. Roberto Che Espinosa uses someone named José Esteban Muñoz, who talks about disidentifications, a sense of utopia, and that's what brown and queer people do. They disidentify from society. This world was built for me, but was not built for me, but I am in it. And then I imagine what a world built for me looks like, and I strive for it. That's where the hope comes from. Latinx queer people, especially those in the U.S., often occupy a space that is in between cultures. We're not quite members of the U.S. culture, but we are not members of our ancestral home either. We're members of a Latinx culture, but our queerness prevents us from fully connecting to its machista heteronormativity. Many of us grew up Catholic or Christian, but we're marginalized for both our Latinidad and our queerness. Bad Bunny's Reggaeton is creating a new vision for a future where Latinidad is queer. I am not just Puerto Rican, I am a queer Puerto Rican who can bring his weird sexual expression fully into my Puerto Ricanidad. And I invite people who are Latinx to consider ways to do the same. Con su arte, Bad Bunny propone un nuevo mestizaje, un mezquiertaje, que desafía el machismo y la heteronormatividad. En otras palabras, está creando una nueva visión para un futuro en el cual la latinidad reconoce su propia sexualidad como componente central. Ya no tenemos que vivir vidas desintegradas, como si nuestra cultura no fuese una cultura sexual. I'm concluding here. In summary, the history of reggaeton is the history of Latinx destiny. It is a story of struggle, migration, and mestizaje. It is a story of exile. It is a story of disenfranchisement. It is a story of economic and political oppression, but most importantly, it's a story of liberation that in modern times seeks new forms of liberation informed by contemporary liberatory movements in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Bad Bunny spearheads this new effort for liberation from cultural and sexual oppression with his provocative art that makes us question norms drilled into us Latinx people from an early age. Utilizing the art of reggaeton as discursive power, in true Puerto Rican fashion, he has deployed a new form of resistance against political, economic, cultural, and sexual colonization. La historia del reggaetón es una historia de liberación y el nuevo reggaetón, encabezado por nuestro querido Benito, propone una liberación abarcadora política, económica, liberal y sexual. I will conclude my remarks with the words of our esteemed Tony Alonso, who in his analysis of how Latinx people celebrate liturgy reminds us that, quote, Christian liturgy reflects or even determines the belief of the church. This belief is grounded in an attitude of celebration or fiesta. That's an end quote, by the way. This belief is grounded in an attitude of celebration or fiesta around liturgy and a celebration of difference under a self-constituting banner of Latinidad. In his words, quote, resisting rigid boundaries, narrow identities, and ever-present tendencies toward territorial, cultural, and racial essentialism, liturgical differences invite attention to the blurred hybrid intercultural identities that better embrace the fullness and the complexity of who people are in the world. If we consider reggaeton a form of self-constitutive, diversified, liturgical fiesta, At some point in the celebration, we probably would perform the following litany, and I invite Tony to help me. You're the presider, Tony. Pray for us. Ruega por nosotros. Okay, that's my presentation today. Thank you very much. We have about a few minutes left, about 20 minutes or so. Is that am I right on time? And then for some Q&A and discussion, I would invite you to maybe take 2 minutes to talk to an elbow buddy. What was something that struck you, or what is a question that you still have, and then we'll come back as a big group. Ready, set, go. Discutimos con una persona en nuestra cercanía sobre la charla y qué preguntas tienen.
Thank you. I was not too bad on time. I thought it was going to be worse. It was going to be worse.
10 minutes. And then the lavalier supper.
Huh?
All right, let me get the mic.
Alrighty, coming back, please. What are some of the questions that came up in your discussion? And we will be running a mic. Valeria, ¿quieres usar este? Yo utilizo este. I'll use this. Oh, perfect. Yes.
Dr. Ruiz, thank you so much. This was beautiful.
Wait.
We are recording online.
Okay. Dr. Ruiz, thank you so much. This was beautiful and inspiring, and all kinds of other sad, exileless heart for many of us. But one thing that I take is the turn I had never seen in reggaeton, and it is the camp turn. And I'm now, if I am allowed, a woman can lose her honor by saying this, but I have to say it because it's about the word chocha. And it's not so much vagina as the place of penetration, although he plays with that in other songs. I think what he's doing with chocha is actually playing with what by this time has become the term that has displaced chocha as the camp term, and which is crica. You know, crica has become, especially after Maria, you know, estar encriquillado, and it's just like, it's really a very dynamic word, both for women and for men, but more women use crica. Well, as chocha continues to be, maybe that's why you associate it with vagina. But you know, chocha is the whole shebang, the whole enchilada, the whole tortilla, you know. No, because reproductive goes all the way in. It's that. Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing about female sexuality being so much more in circulation in reggaeton than in other spaces before. Salsa appropriated female sexuality with the violence and kind of reified it. But you're absolutely right, and where I saw it really come to a beautiful turn is with the invocation of chocha, with the images of camp and voguing. Chocha is camp, and I think it's a really, really beautiful poetic turn that I'm hoping that you'll push it, you know, that you'll turn some more, because it really, it is such a nasty word, because female sexuality is so buried underneath issues of honor and possession and penetration and reification that, I'm thinking now René and Ile, his sister, the sister who's La Hormiga Brava, yo soy caliente, yo soy lava, and so forth and so on. But now she's singing very soft tunes. So there's the mobilization of female sexuality that I think is happening right in plain sight. And I commend you for showing it and for invoking it. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Well, the microphone walks. My history with that song in particular, right? I actually, I love Bad Bunny. I'm singing, I'm dancing with my family, with my friends. And as a gay man, I actually never knew what to do with that section. I was always like, now I know what to do with that section. Okay. Yes.
Hi, Dr. Ruiz. Thank you so much. That was amazing, and we learned a lot, and we had a lot of fun over here at this table listening to you. You briefly mentioned, in conjunction with Bad Bunny, the idea of queer baiting. We had like a little brief conversation about, we don't know as much about Bad Bunny, but I know a lot about that conversation with Harry Styles, like these male celebrities sort of playing with gender and sexuality, but not overtly stating their sexuality. What are your thoughts about that, and your thoughts about like needing to make your sexuality explicit and, service to the community without being explicit? Any of that?
Yeah, I will answer parts of that question. The other one, because part of the answer is I don't know. So Bad Bunny was actually asked that directly recently, about 2 weeks ago. That's something that I had to cut from my talk. And he responded to the queer baiting in an interesting way, similarly saying, this is what you see on the outside. You don't know what I feel on the inside. And he said, that his fashion is, and even his gender, is a creation that he has fun playing with. Sometimes the discourse about queer baiting, I often wonder where it's grounded. There's a big difference between LGBTQ+ liberation and activism and queer liberation and activism. The difference being that LGBTQ+ liberation assumes that the identities are stable. Okay? There is something that means what it means to be gay. There's a gayness, there's a lesbianness, a transness, and this is what it looks like. Okay? And LGBTQ+ activism seeks representation and seeks to remove political obstacles so that LGBTQ+ people can flourish and be a part of society. Queerness is not interested in any of that. Queer activism, or the queer project, seeks to deconstruct stable identities. Okay? And on that vein, it is not a question of representation. Representation actually is counteractive to queer aims because it might reify, solidify, performatively solidify a conception of gender, sexual orientation, etc. When Pete Buttigieg ran for president, I thought, great! But then I also wondered, do queer people think that that's what a gay man, a queer person looks like? And does that image become exclusive to other forms of queerness? Right, so representation, wonderful for political aims, but from a queer standpoint, might reify understandings of gender, sexuality, etc. When we accuse Bad Bunny of queer baiting, which of the two are we actually grounded on? So the queer project wants to be expansive, wants to break away from molds, wants to break away from labels, wants to break away from normativity. This is a side note. I actually think that the unbridled deconstruction of norms is dangerous. Okay, so I tend to ground the queer project in a historical consciousness and an aim for liberation. Okay. That said, it's a different kind of project. And so a queer activist would not look at Bad Bunny and say, well, you're queer baiting. An LGBTQ+ activist might, because they have aims for representation, and they're saying you're appropriating, you're playing with our box without stepping into the box. Okay? So I understand the question and where it comes from. I understand that appropriation happens. This morning we were talking at Keith's sermon, and because you quoted people from different faith traditions, people asked you how can you appropriately, retrieve wisdom from other traditions. So the question of participating in, that's a big question that I would ask for sure. But at the end of the day, I guess I don't know how else to answer the question, but I'm trying to give you tools to navigate the question, if you will, because it'd be great if I had a sense and could read Bad Bunny's mind, but because I don't, I have to treat it with a little bit more mercy, respect, and with an appreciation for what he's doing for queer people. So, my sense.
Oh, hi.
Last question.
It actually follows up on. But thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation. It was just very regenerative. But I just had come back from Boston College, where we had a decolonial conference with Nelson Torres Manola, and he brought up some really good and profound decolonial critiques about mestizaje that I think kind of hit what you're talking about with queer baiting, which is in a way this need to want to be hybrid or unsettled really makes invisible the original, and the knowledge that comes from it. So I'm thinking, I'm like, any music in this world that's popular right now probably has some African or black root to it, but nobody knows that, and especially right now as we come up on we're celebrating 50 years of hip hop, which also has just been commercialized, and it's almost like, what hip hop are we talking? Even now, as we think about this, because it's been colonized in so much of a way, Jay-Z's in a museum, but is this really hip hop? Is it, what's happening? What type of queer baiting or desensitizing are we trying to do in order to be in a popular mode or venue? So yeah, Nelson was really critical of mestizaje as this, utopian, above any type of racial classification, grounded in ethics, because it really makes invisible the heritage that is actually the foundation for all of this. And I think I'm seeing the same thing with queer and lesbian LGBTQ distinction. I just hear more.
Great point, and it is a critique that I also highlight, which is why I wanted to reemphasize those two words of reclaiming and restructuring, right? Where I stand with mestizaje in and of itself, part of me wants to think of mestizaje as an inevitable reality, that we are going to continue to be cosmopolitan and actual cultural mestizaje and even mesquirtaje is kind of where things are going to be moving. So the question is, for me, how do we create structures of reclaiming precisely? I think this is obviously a way broader conversation and a critique of mestizaje that is very, very valid. Applicable to this particular genre, I am constantly noticing that trend to both reclaim and restructure, as evidence in that Me Gusta La de Puerto Rico. Most people, to your point, don't actually realize that was a very old song from El underground, when reggaeton was, barely commercialized, right? And there are many contemporary songs. I don't know how many of you know Ella está soltera. Estar soltera está de moda, right? And then there's that little refrain that goes, Ella está soltera con sus amigas revueltas, right? So that's actually a Daddy Yankee song that's, again, very old. Plan B es Plan B, Bad Bunny's remix of Dura. Plan B song from, so reggaeton is full of that sampling. Tego Calderón is mentioned, who was one of the original reggaeton artists. My parents actually didn't like reggaeton, but they bought the Tego Calderón CD, and they listened to that. A lot of sampling of his music and quoting him. So reggaeton as a genre does do both of those things. So my question, I guess, is how can we face our new reality of cultural pluralism and diversity, which is going to continue, right? While also maintaining that connection to the roots. That's where my advocacy would go. And yeah, I don't line up with Elizondo as in, and I know I quoted him, but I don't necessarily think that mestizaje is something we need to perhaps force and strive toward. But I do think it is something that will inevitably happen and has many benefits for our communities and our societies who can now interact with each other a little more.
Could I express how I feel my mestizaje? Okay? Okay. I feel like I am a ribbon. You know the ribbon? It have many colors? Yeah, okay. Each rainbow have his good things and his bad things. Because no one is perfect. No culture, no man, no woman. Nothing is perfect. But I am a rainbow and I try to know each of the colors that I have in my blood. And I try to rescue the best of each of them and leave the worst on the back. Then I am a very good rainbow. And I feel it, and I love it, and I share it, and I learn, and I give and teach.
Thank you. I'm going to let that be the last word. Thank you.
I'd like to invite Demelis Sacriste to say some words.
Hi, for those who don't know me, I'm Benito Sacriste, and I'm with the Candler Foundry here at Candler. So I'm here to, first of all, thank the Aquinas Center for partnering and offering this kind of events during our Latinx Hispanic Heritage Month. But I'm also here to, if you don't know anything about the Candler Foundry is the public outreach arm of Candler to bring our resources out into the community. The courses that we offer at the Foundry are made available for everyone, for those who are regular churchgoers or just curious about faith. And the main thing that we try to do is really making seminary available outside our walls. So in that vein, I want to promote and ask you to help me get the word out. And of course that Dr. Ruiz is teaching, that starts next week, out online. And one of the focuses, and one of the things that Ish has done for us as one of our instructors is make sure that our courses are rigorous, but also accessible, okay? So the next one that we're offering, the one that I'm here to promote it's called Transgender Persons Pastoral Care Within the Catholic Church. So it goes for 2 weeks, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, starting October 10th. We know Dr. Ish is the Provost Candler postdoctoral teaching fellow in Catholic Studies. And this is kind of the description of what, our goal for this offering is. It's to really equip participants with theological, practical, and relational skills. Okay? So if you or someone you think could take advantage of this, help me get the word out. I have extra things that you can take with you. But also at the Foundry, we strive to make sure that we can have really interactive faculties. We also have a year of access to Pitt's Theological Library, engagement, and of course, a team that is ready to serve and help bring this to a community, a group, or open for individuals. So as a special tonight, we're offering a free entry, free registration to this course. And that's the QR to get to it. And the promotional code, I hope it's not hard to forget.
It's Bad Bunny, not Bad Buddy. Bad Bunny. No, there was a publication that said...
Oh, okay. I was like, no way. I did not misspell it.
No, someone else did earlier.
Okay. So help me promote it. If you don't have the time to attend this, I know a lot of you already have a full load of classes. But if you know someone, maybe in your faith communities, help me bring that. And if you'd like for the Candler Foundry to come into your faith communities and bring a specific, that's kind of the genius of what we can do. We can partner with churches and really customize and tailor topics, thematics, because our faculty is so diverse, and really make it fit within your context, okay? So if you have any other question about the Foundry, come see me at the table, grab some information, and please share this widely on your networks. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm the last person. I'm Greg Hillis. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the executive director of the Aquinas Center, and we're the ones who were able to bring Ish to you tonight as part of our contribution to the Hispanic and Latinx Heritage Month here at Candler. When I was interviewing for this position, I was in New York City before I even came here to Candler, and I went to America Media and I spent a little bit of time with Father Jim Martin. And if you don't know who he is, he's a Jesuit, and he's currently at the Synod in Rome at this moment. And I said, well, I'm interviewing at a few places, and one of them is Candler. He said, oh, well, you have to know Ish, he says, right? And now I know why. I wish you were actually here this semester, brother.
I am here right now.
I know you are. Anyways, now I know why. That was just such a wonderful presentation, and I'm so grateful to you for coming all the way here from California and for doing this, and I think we owe him another round of applause. I would also love to thank Val, who is our Latinx liaison for the Aquinas Center. And she has done so much work for this event. And also we need to thank Alice, who always organizes wonderful food and a wonderful time. If you haven't introduced yourself to me, please do so. I'd love to get to know you and to find out a little bit more about who you are. But thank you so much for coming. There is an evaluation that we would love for you to fill out. It's another one of those wonderful QR codes, and it's right behind Lyndon, right where, there we are. So as on your way out, if you wouldn't mind doing an evaluation of this event for us, we would love to hear what you think. Thank you again for coming, and safe travels home.